Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're new. Welcome back if you've been here before, welcome if you're new. That's what I meant to say. If you are new, this video is going to be about narcissistic abuse survival and the reality that a lot of survivors go through when they speak about their trauma, and how to respond when somebody says that they're being abused without further traumatizing them or invalidating them, because that's something that happens, and it has happened to me throughout my entire life, and it is isolating, it is traumatizing, it's painful, it's deeply, deeply hurtful. So I received, first I'll share this. I talk about my adverse trauma childhood experiences, narcissistic abuse survival from my mother, being legally kidnapped and shipped to a troubled teen institution prison facility, being almost trafficked, losing my sister to suicide, and tons of other deeply traumatic dynamics throughout my life. So I post on Instagram pretty regularly. You can find me at Rustic Peach. I believe it's in the description below if you want to have a visual and see my username there. I post reels on, wisdom in survival and alchemizing pain and trauma into growth and achieving success, and, cultivating the capacity in your nervous system to actually begin to embody the life of your dreams, because as abuse survivors, we had a lot of joy, safety, connection, consistency, stability. We had those things stolen from us as children or as, adults. Whatever we've gone through, trauma robs. It robs us of, our birthright. And I believe that it is every single human being's God-given right to experience fulfillment, joy, connection, ecstasy on earth, heaven on earth. It's said that the keys to the kingdom of heaven are within, and when we know how to, connect with that faith and surrender, and while not bypassing our emotional trauma healing realities, we can achieve, we can live out these rags to riches stories. We can achieve profound success and grow to influence and impact and lead other survivors, other victims, other people who are still in the throes of darkness where we walked out of already. Now we're here, we're shining bright, we're being loud about it, we're taking advantage of every opportunity, every platform, every surge of creativity, every surge of inspiration to channel that wisdom, to be seen by the people who need to see us. And it's not about this face, it's not about Aaliyah, it's not about me, it's about me being a vessel and leading, showing you the way that I walked, because I happen to be a body who survived these things that other people survived as well, but so many people are still suffering from. So I always like to just drive that in myself, and saying it out loud helps me stay grounded as well, because it's so easy to get self-conscious or lose myself to, the metrics or attention, when all that stuff absolutely is super fun and super validating. And, I'm a human and I'm an ego, and I love an ego stroke now and again. However, that is separate from, my impact and my mission. And in fact, I would like to use my ego, and use my appearance to appeal to people. Not saying that I would change myself, but I think it's good to feel good about yourself enough so that you feel confident in showing up and sharing your story. Anyway, that's kind of a tangent, a side note, but I posted on my Instagram because I'll start here. This is where the story begins. Once upon a time, I was scrolling on my reels, and I've been seeing a lot of really bangers lately, and I'm saving them all. Because as I've been putting out my niche content, Instagram has been giving me content that's really, really aligned with me, more than I've ever seen and on Instagram before. And one of those was so specific, it blew my mind, and I've never heard anyone talk about this phenomenon before. But basically what the reel said was that narcissistic parents have this thing universally where they make a crap ton of noise in the house at night or in the morning when you're trying to sleep. And I scrolled in the comments and I was seeing these comments of all these people sharing their experiences of, their narcissistic parents doing the dishes violently loudly in the morning or at night, or yelling on the phone or whatever. Like, the reel itself was like this woman like clanking dishes and practically throwing them in the cabinet, and like vacuuming and like bumping the vacuum up against the closed bedroom door of their child who's trying to sleep, and yelling on the phone, literally yelling on the phone. And I'm like, is this a narcissistic personality trait? Because my mom acted like that my entire life. And I looked in the comments and I saw all these people's experiences of their noise levels never being respected, or their noise needs never being respected. And there was one person who commented, that was their life every day, and their nervous system is still recovering. And I was like, so the fuck is mine? So in like August or July, around like summer, late summer of this, now last year, it's January, it's New Year's today. Happy New Year, by the way, 2026. Woo! In like mid-late summer of 2025, I became officially estranged from my mom and pretty much my entire family, almost my entire family. Because of the abuse, and because I finally had autonomy and she no longer had leverage over my finances. She had been financially abusing and exploiting me, and I had no idea about it until earlier this summer, and I took back that control of that. I took back control of my belongings that she was in possession of, and was threatening to throw all of my stuff away. That's a story for another time. And if you know the traps of narcissism and sociopathy, then you know that these people do not give a shit about your feelings or consent or your belongings or your life. And as a child, when they have control over these physical things that bring safety and stability into your life, like your belongings, your prized possessions, and your money, and whatever else that they have control over, if you are being shielded from the truth and the consequence of you pursuing the truth, or speaking the truth, or standing up on your own 2 feet equates to your survival resources being taken away from you, then it's infinitely fold, however you say that, more impossible to regain your own autonomy from that abuse. Because for a lot of sufferers, a lot of victims, survival and doing the right thing, right? The thing that people on the outside think is right. Oh, just leave. Just like get your own job, like get your own house. You know what I mean? Like, just, why can't you just talk to them about it? Well, for some people, it means certain death. And that is a reality. I am not kidding you when I say that. That is how severe and how real narcissistic, sociopathic abuse is. And I was in that situation. My mom has threatened to kill me before, and she has tried to kill me before. And I have a video on my page about that. I was 16, and she was driving recklessly with me in the passenger seat, and she threatened to kill me. She threatened to kill both of us right then and there. She has also abandoned me and abused me in the midst of a life-threatening health crisis that I was going through earlier this year. So those were 2 tangible times that my life and my survival was immediately threatened by just existing, and yada yada. So, I finally get on my own 2 feet this year, and fast forward, I find this reel. I've been completely 100% independent of her since like summer this year, like untangling some of the legal financial stuff that, again, I didn't know that for 10 years it was being hidden from me. And when I found it out, I took care of it in like 2 months. It was the most chaotic. This past year, 2025, was one of the hardest years of my life. 2015 was also the hardest year of my life, but it was like a different flavor. But this is also another hardest year of my life, 10 years later. Hopefully this never happens again. Hopefully 10 years from now I don't have another. Let's just say 10 years from now I'm going to have the best year of my life. It's just only going up from here. That's what I want, because I've survived enough and I'm ready to live out the last 3/4 of my life and beyond, if I live longer than 100, in peace. So anyway, because of all this trauma, whatever, my body struggled with sleep. And sometimes my body would rebel at night and it would just not let me fall asleep, because what I lived with pretty much my entire life was going to sleep just to wake up the next day to being abused by my mom, being screamed at, being violated with sound, especially if I was sick or I had a migraine. I used to get chronic migraines, chronic headaches, definitely likely because of the abuse as well. And I developed like chronic illness, symptoms because of the abuse, which I'm now healing and I'm now pretty much in control of, which is amazing. I finally found someone who helps me, and I have videos on that as well. Because, chronic trauma and stress is tied into, chronic health issues, chronic illness. So if that's something that you have more questions about or you want to hear me talk about more, you can leave, a comment, and I'll go into all this stuff. But, my body equated going to sleep with inevitable despair the next morning. There was not a single night under this woman's roof during my childhood or, later into my younger adulthood, where I fell asleep and woke up in peace. I mean, maybe some nights when I was, younger, and I had less, accumulated trauma. But my predominant memory is of being woken up in a very violating manner to my nervous system. It was not peaceful. It was very aggressive. And as a child, I wasn't allowed to protest, being woken up without being attacked. And, I was taught that my body's sensitivities and my body's needs were literally a threat to me, because in my house they were, in my mom's presence they were. So I was abused. I was abused for just existing. Okay, so that's the thing with sleep, whatever. She always violated my noise needs, She would also, she always would scream on the phone early in the morning. She would crash pots and pans. She would walk around and slam doors and, not like aggressively every day, but she would just shut doors really loudly. Like, it's not something that you do when you're in a house with someone you care about, and it's so classic caring human being behavior to quietly shut the door and tiptoe when they're sleeping. Like in the middle of the night, if you have to use the bathroom, you don't slam the door if you give a shit about them. You quietly try to click it shut. And you're not going to be perfect. It's going to make a little bit of noise, but like, you care about their sensitivity, so you try to be quiet. That was not my mom. And even on days when I protested and said, I'm literally physically ill and in excruciating pain, I need you to shut the fuck up so I can have some peace and rest. And yeah, we get to that point sometimes, because all of my protests went unheard and unheeded. So I was just left there to suffer. I was left there for my headaches to get worse. I was left there to get violently ill. I was left there to develop full body eczema because she didn't give a shit, because she's a narcissist and a partially sociopath with sociopathic tendencies, hence the trying to kill me and completely just seeing me as an object instead of a human being who has needs, separate from her. And my needs, it's like the existence of another human being's in their fullness with their needs is a threat to a narcissist. So for that reason alone, they are not capable biologically, psychologically, spiritually of loving, and love is an action, of loving their children. They should not have children. I'm glad I was born. I'm glad for my life. Sometimes I am not. And I try to, being of service and helping lead other people through this darkness and bullshit is what gives my life meaning. Because other than that, it's like, what fucking ever. You know what I mean? Like, I can, like, buy a nice pair of earrings and have fun with them. And, of course, I love my cat. And, I love making meaningful connections and everything. But it's like, if I'm not, alchemizing, transmuting all this bullshit in my life into something that's meaningful, purposeful, fulfilling, it's like, what's the point? Why did I even come here, And then I do enjoy, like, little pleasures here and there. But you know what? It's harder sometimes in life. There are seasons where it feels impossible to enjoy anything because my nervous system is just catching up on rest and peace that it never got my entire life. And in my upbringing, and with all the grief and the weight and the isolation, just everything is just so heavy. It's too heavy for any one person to carry. That's why I make my videos. It's why I share. It's why I speak. So the noise thing, I remember when I was a child and I was maybe like an adolescent, 12, 13, whatever, like a preteen or a young teenager. I would be driving in the car with my mom in the passenger seat, and she would be talking on the phone, and I would start to cry and tell her, please get off the phone. My head is pounding right now. Like, I would be in so much pain. And she would just not stop fucking talking on the phone. She would just talk, and then she would hang up and she would answer the fucking phone again. Imagine that. Imagine being a child growing up in a household when peace and quiet, it only exists when you're alone or when you're isolated. The only place you can really hear yourself is when you're by yourself. I mean, that's still kind of true somewhat, but then also there are people who actually value what you have to say and are willing to hear you and hold space for you. So it's like, with certain people you can hear yourself. And not everyone really wants to listen to you the way that you can listen to yourself, It's a rare thing to find that. And even with the people who are most attuned and most craving to hear you and take you in and drink you in, even those people have limits and can't, infinitely, receive you. They need to discharge that energy somehow, or take a break or whatever. Maybe it exists and I've just never experienced it before. I've experienced, deep, profound connection and sharing and exchanging, but it's like, we only have so many hours of energy in a day, you know what I mean? So that's kind of my point. And with ourselves too, we only have so much energy in a day to, like, process our emotions, which literally depletes minerals. So it's like, it's just a whole thing. So anyway, with the noise thing, I saw a reel that basically described my childhood in relation to the way that my mom treated and abused my sound sensitivity. And I was like, whoa, is this a common thing? So I made a reel about it. Not a reel, I'm sorry. Instagram story about it. And I was like, who of my followers also experienced this? No one messaged me, but I had some people like it. And then I received a message from this random guy on Facebook, which, if you're watching this, I don't know what to tell you. I hope that you can learn from this, because this is a very, very serious issue. That I don't take lightly, and it really just has deeply affected me my entire life. But I got this message that was basically the point of this video, which is what not to tell someone who shares stories of their abuse. This person said, okay, your mom was loud, but I think she loved you. She either wanted your attention, your company, or even for you to just seize the day. She also took you in. She was there at your lowest, and you can count on her. What an amazing woman. I'm glad you didn't leave that out, which I did. So what the fuck? Sarcasm. Like, okay. How are you doing amazing now and continue to do so? How's your art progressing? So I didn't hold back. I told this guy I was pissed off. I was like, this way of talking to someone who shares their abuse is harmful as fuck. And I did say, I'm sure your intentions were good. I don't know, but I think that the message just shows how ignorant some people are to the reality, and how deeply painful it is to live in the world as a survivor with other people that are so blatantly ignorant to the torture that is surviving narcissistic abuse or any kind of abuse. So the first thing that's really harmful about this is when he says, okay, she was loud, but I think she loved you. When in my story, I literally said that she didn't love me. So that's something that abuse survivors really struggle with, is even integrating their lived experience that their parents don't love them, because it's really hard for the world to believe. I mean, I'm like, there's no Disney movies about that, but actually, yes, there is Rapunzel. I mean, even in Rapunzel, the Pixar version of Rapunzel, her mother is a narcissist. Rapunzel exists to fulfill her mother's, ego, and that's it. That's the only reason that she possessed her, because Rapunzel has this magical hair with this magical power. So Mother Gothel, I think is her name, right? She stole Rapunzel from her parents and locked her away in a tower, and that was her whole life. And she gaslit Rapunzel, saying everything else around you is gonna hurt you and kill you. I am everything you need. Meanwhile, she's suffocating Rapunzel's life, and Rapunzel doesn't even realize her own power because she's been kept from it, and that's abuse, and from Mother Gothel's perspective, deeply flawed, not even valid. She is loving her daughter because she's protecting her from the world, but that's an excuse for, I don't want other people to see you shine, so that I will have to confront my own insecurities. And that's the reality of having a narcissistic parent or lover or friend or whatever. You are not anything to them. You are reduced to dust for them. You are a tool for their ego. That's all you are to a narcissist. And I understand why people backlash with, are you sure? No, she had to love you. No, she didn't mean it. Well, you know where that's coming from is their own inability to even metabolize the truth and the reality that some people just use people. Some people treat people like they're disposable. That's how I was treated. I was treated like literal garbage. And it's still hard for me to fathom sometimes, because the grief is so fucking huge. It is way too big for my body to even contain sometimes, that when I recall it, it makes me stare out into space. As you can see, I have these pauses that happen in my speech where I'm just like, ugh. Because that's how unfathomable the reality is, that my mother doesn't care about me. And also on a biological level, that does something. It creates a war in your cells when your own mother rejects you at your core. It creates illness. It creates chronic inflammation. When your body is at war with yourself because your mother pitted herself against you and is using you for her own ego fuel and not for your growth, your love, your flourishing, that creates chronic illness. And in the world, likewise, when there is no room for all of you, differences and perspectives and uniqueness and all, if there is a space outside of you in your life, a system that you are bound to somehow on a survival level, your cells, your biology picks up on that and absorbs it. And so your cells fight themselves. It is like self-destruct. And I'm so sorry if I'm butchering this. I just got a book. It's called Undreaming Wetiko. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but I looked it up on ChatGPT and they said it was a Cree indigenous Indian tradition, the Wetiko phenomenon. And the Wetiko is like an archetype or a parasitic spirit that feeds off of insecurity, doubt, disconnection, all these things. And in a world possessed by Wetiko, where people are, it is a disembodied world. It's a world where people's bodies fight themselves because they're not in themselves. If your soul, which is, think about it, your soul is infinite vitality, it's infinite life force, it's love, it's healing. Think about Jesus. I'm not religious, I'm not Christian, but like think about how he healed people. And think about, if you're into energetics and whatnot, think about how when someone genuinely poured love into you, it healed you. I'll tell you a little anecdote. There was a moment that I got into a fling with this guy, and it was during a full body eczema flare up like a couple years ago. And within 3 days of being very physically intimate and close with this person, my entire body cleared up because I finally felt this catharsis and this feeling met and feeling loved, and my skin reflected it. In 3 days, I was clear. That is the power of love. That is the power of embodiment. That is the power of loving physical touch, connection, intimacy. Oh, God. Which brings me to a side tangent around sex and intimacy. I have carried shame at times for being, intimate with partners who I didn't wind up marrying. Every person I've ever fell in love with, I want to marry them. But, I haven't met my person yet. And I have had it in my will and my heart and my soul to wait, to hold out, on, sharing any form of intimacy with someone who was not my husband until I met my husband, because of how deeply it would affect me. Because I'm a devotional soul. It's my nature. So when I open up that channel and I share in any intimate capacity with a man, in a personal intimate relationship capacity, it just triggers these things because I'm a woman wired for devotion and intimacy. And so when that intimacy opens up and surprise, the relationship is not actually stable enough to last for the rest of your life, then I'm left with this aching, longing devotion with nowhere to put it. So, in my life, I have wrestled on and off, not super, super bad, but on and off with this idea of shame for some decisions that I made in relationships. And I was like, I felt regret. I felt so sad and heartbroken that I almost wasted my energy on people who I just wound up feeling more hurt after I was with them. And I say this because it's almost like I'm saying this out loud in case anyone else can see themselves in this part of my story. If you don't relate to this part, just hang tight. I'm going to move on. But I just don't want people to carry shame for being physically intimate when they needed to be, if it was a survival thing, and there's a lot of shame culture in especially Christianity and religion. I admittedly watch a lot of Christian based teachings and stuff, and I completely agree with and understand the philosophy that waiting until marriage for sex and time. And even in Orthodox Judaism, the courtship process involves not even touching their physical flesh until you're married. And my soul completely resonates with that. However, because I'm a human, because I have been severely traumatized to the point of physical illness and near death, I needed those intimate experiences to fill this cup in me that was never filled by my own family. It was never filled by my life. So it translated into extremely powerful, disproportionately powerful romantic experiences. And I don't even want to say disproportionate because that feels like an insult to myself. I think what's happening here is I'm taking back my narrative, and in doing so, I want you to discover what a narrative that feels good for you. This is all one and the same here, abuse healing, relationships, love, empowerment, being in control of your narrative and, owning who you are. No one can tell you or project onto you who you are or what you're capable of or what you need or what's best for you. Only you can really figure that out and own that. And until you can kind of embody it, then you can't really feel that kind of peace, right? In a world where you make a different choice than somebody else who maybe you agree with in a lot of ways, but fundamentally there's something that they value or push that doesn't align with you. And so instead of that turning into a point of, aggression and fighting and shame for either person, it can become compassion and understanding, because I am frankly sick and disgusted by people who project and assume anything at all. Don't. I know it's really hard to listen, but actually it's not. You're just conditioned to assume things because of fear. So anyway, moving back to this message, I posted this thing about the noise on my Instagram story, whatever, and he said, she was loud, but she loved you and she wanted your company, your attention, or even for you to just seize the day. And so in my mind, I'm thinking who are you to say that my mom loved me? Hold on, I gotta shut this thing off. As sad as this is, it is a reality that you cannot assume in this world that every parent loves their child. That is bullshit. Bullshit. It's not true. Or she wanted my attention. Okay, so let me break that down. If someone violently making noise every single morning, despite your pleas for peace and quiet, especially when you're sick, is their way of asking for attention, then why are you validating them? Why are you defending them? Because that is immature, childish bullshit behavior. It is so profoundly inappropriate to make a ruckus and disrespect somebody's nervous system sensitivity and sleep just because you want their attention. It is a pathetic excuse. It's pathetic. And then I don't even know where they got this from, or even for you to just seize the day. Maybe if they made all that noise in the morning, they just wanted you to just seize the day. What the fuck does that even mean? It just makes zero sense. I can't even argue with it. It just makes no sense. How does someone making a ruckus in the morning repeatedly without honoring your need for quiet a single fucking day in your life? I'm telling you, there was not a single day where I asked for it and I got it. There was not a single day I asked for my needs and I got what I needed from my mom consistently. And when it was crumbs, and they lasted 5 seconds. And it was not even often that I got the crumbs. She also took you in, he says. What does that even mean? Took me in from where? She conceived me, she birthed me. But when you hang that, oh, she's your mother, you should respect her, above the heads of survivors, just because we share blood does not grant you access or permission to my energy. Respect does. Belonging does. Integrity does. Genuine care and warmth does. Support does. But abuse? To hell with you. If you abuse me, you don't exist anymore in my life. Because you've scarred me. You left a scar. That's enough. I'm gonna go let it heal now. Far away from you. She was there at your lowest and you can count on her. Do you know what that feels like to hear from a random ass person on the internet talking directly to me saying she was there at your lowest and you can count on her? When what I went through this year was having a life-threatening flare-up in my bedroom, unable to wear clothes, unable to move, unable to speak, and I was physically shaking because my nerves were on fire. My skin barrier was broken. My skin was like paper. When I breathed, when I moved, it would break. And when I would bathe and shower, my skin would burn. It would burn so aggravatingly bad. This went on for months, okay? And I needed help. I couldn't cook my own meals. I couldn't do my own errands. I couldn't take care of myself. I was in need. I was disabled. And I've had flare-ups before where I've remained lucid, but my proprioception and speech and kind of thought coherence all melted. So it felt like death. My whole body would just shut down. I would black out. I would numb out. I would lose, muscle tone in my body, and I would come close to feeling like I was gonna faint a lot of the time. Like the I could be driving in the car, and breathe in some airborne exhaust or toxins or something. There was one time I was pumping gas at a gas station and I smelled the gas, and I got a neurological flare up right on the spot. I was so like at capacity, and I didn't have any friends or family to help me, so the energy that I did have, I used it to drive to my nature park and walk around the park. And there were days I would walk around the park with my arms and my legs wrapped in like ace bandages with castor oil underneath, because it was like a second skin. But it was really shitty because it was too hot in Florida in like the spring to walk outside with like clothing on. So it sucked, because if I wanted to walk, and I could do it with my castor oil ace bandages, but then it would get too hot and then I would have a flare up from the heat. But if I didn't, my skin would just break. Not even the humidity and the heat would keep it supple enough. So my mom, I called her in to sit in my room with me in case I needed an ambulance or food or water or had an emergency or needed to stand up or whatever, because I was in the middle of my flare up. So she sat on my bed for like less than 10 minutes, scrolling on her fucking phone. No, not even concerned for me. And then I was laying on the floor underneath it with a towel draped over me, laying in front of a space heater while I was trembling. And my mom got a phone call and walked out the room, and I blew the fuck up. I lost it, because out of all the times in my life when I'm most vulnerable, she took a work call inviting her to receive an award at her Keller Williams workplace. It was an award for like most rentals or something. She would do real estate. And so I screamed at her and I said, "You always fucking leave me. You always leave me." And then she just called me selfish. She called me selfish. She called me selfish in my darkest hour. She called me selfish when I was dying. She abused me. She treated me like garbage, okay? This is a reality. And don't you fucking dare come at me and make some excuses for her. If you do, I'm going to take your comment. I'm going to make another video about it, okay? If you can't handle this and you feel the urge to defend her or be like, what? Or like make me wrong, like sit the fuck down, okay? Because this is serious. This is something that I'm done carrying by myself, and I'm done being the only one to have a spine and talk about these things. I didn't have an advocate my whole life. I went to school and I was abused behind closed doors by my mom. Nobody fucking saw what was happening. CPS was called on her. They didn't do shit. In the troubled teen institution, she was like gang banging the fucking owners of the TTI, and I was still the scapegoat. So I was abused in that institution. I was abused in a psych ward. Nobody said, I'm so sorry, Aaliyah, that your mother is a narcissistic sociopath, and your pain is valid, and that's why you're sick, that's why you're depressed, because she's not taking care of you. So of course, baby child having to be independent since like a young ass age, like single digit age, having to be independent, having to comfort myself, crying hysterically alone, as a 6-year-old, as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old, learning that when someone hurts me in preschool or someone upsets me, mommy isn't there to comfort me, nobody to run to, I go reach for affection. I'm physically pushed away, all this stuff. So do not you fucking tell me, make excuses for my mother. She is a narcissistic sociopath possessed by this spirit of narcissism and sociopathy, period. There's no excuses that can change that. And I wish more people had the voice that I'm using right now to tell to me when I needed to hear it most, So what else did this guy say? She was there at your lowest and you can count on her, which is like, I think my best guess is that he's assuming that every mother is there at your lowest and you can count on them. But, there are mothers that literally, like, abandon their babies to die. So that's, yeah. And he says, what an amazing woman. And it's like, I'm the amazing one. I'm the amazing one. The fact that I survived with heart, with softness, with passion. And also the fact that I exist makes me amazing. I don't even need to prove myself to be amazing. My value was never seen or appreciated by my mom. I mean, in bits and pieces here and there it was, but I was never treated valuably. I was never treated like a person of value by her. She would say words that sometimes resonated kind of, but a lot of the time she would say words to hook me, or to take advantage of me, or to get my validation, and to make me go, oh my God, you're so loving, you see me so much, thank you so much, you're such a good mom. Most of the time, that's why she wanted me to praise me. And if I wouldn't react, she would act like I was scolding her, or, saying fuck you to her, whatever. She would just, leech just like this need for like ego validation from me all the time as a kid, and then take out her insecurity on me. And then he said, I'm glad you didn't leave that out, which is like sarcastic and bullshit as fuck. Like, you're glad that he's basically saying you left all the good stuff out about your mom. It's like, yeah, bitch, I fucking did. What's the fucking point? You know what I mean? Like, would you tell someone who is testifying against murder, like, if you were in court and you were a judge and you had a murder attempt victim and the person who attempted the murder, would you tell to the victim, you'd say, why aren't you saying anything good about the guy who tried to murder you? Are you fucking dumb? Literally. Like, wake the fuck up, okay? If someone says that they're abused, do not say that they should be saying good things about their abuser. What the fuck? And you know what? Any goodness that I can still connect with within my mother, which it is there, but it's private. It's not for you. It is not for you at all. It's for me. It's for me to carry the love that I have in my heart for a woman that I never got to connect with and that I will never be able to love. And that is the most excruciatingly painful thing to carry, is the love that I do have for her soul, but the inability to express it to her because it would put me in danger. And that's not the same thing as me, missing what makes her good. I see good in fucking everybody. But how dare you, make a person feel guilty for speaking ill about the person who abused them? It's just another form of erasure, all these things that this person said to me. And it's not just a one-off thing. It's like, I understand people are ignorant, whatever. This is not going to bother me forever. And I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't know this guy personally. Obviously he's ignorant to these kind of dynamics, and so many people are, and that doesn't mean that he's a bad person or that I'm trying to, whatever. But honestly, shame on him in that moment for saying that to someone who openly talked about their abuse survival, because, I'm done carrying, these guilt trips from people who aren't willing to sit with the fact that some people hate their children. It's a fact. And I would say get over it, but it's like, unless you live it and you grieve through it and you are torn apart a million, trillion, thousand, million, infinity times by that reality, then you can't get over it because you don't even know it. You know what I mean? So take it from me. When someone says that they're being abused or that they've survived so-and-so, do not invalidate them. Do not defend their abuser. Just sit down. Try to think about how you can empathize with them. Try to fathom what you would feel if you were in that situation. You know, genuinely. Not in your own situation. Not with your nice, loving mother treating you, you know, annoying you from time to time. Because that's like a pretty normal human thing, right? Getting annoyed with each other now and again. Not all the time, but like subtle inconsistencies in peace and in rhythm is because we're human. We're not perfect, you know. We have little hiccups. But yeah, so yes, my girl, she needs me. But that's all I have. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you have anything to say or want me to go, you know, further into any of these topics. But I'll see you next time.